You pick your child up from school, and within 10 minutes of walking through the door, everything has fallen apart. The bag gets thrown, tears come out of nowhere. Something small like the wrong snack, a sibling looking at them, a TV remote in the wrong spot turns into a full meltdown that wipes out the entire evening. And here's the part that makes no sense. They held it together all day. The teacher said they were fine, great day, no issues. So why does this keep happening the second they get home? I'll tell you what it isn't. It's not a discipline problem. It's not a parenting problem. It's got a name and it's completely predictable. And I'm going to show you how to build the afternoon that supports it for both you and your child. I'm Sharon Collin. I'm a PCC credentialed ADHD coach and parenting expert and a mum of 3 gorgeous boys with ADHD who has lived this exact scenario more times than I can count. I've worked with over 40,000 families, and the after school meltdowns are one of the most common things that I get asked about. But before I get started with practical strategies on this topic, can you please go and take one moment, 1 second, to go and leave me a review on iTunes? You can just scroll down to the bottom of the ADHD Families podcast page or on Spotify or wherever you are listening. It really does help me continue to bring you this beautiful free resource and encourage other people to listen to this podcast. So thank you so much. So here's the plan for today. First, we're going to look at what's actually happening when your child gets home from school. Then why the afternoon is its own beast with its own rules. And then we're going to look at what the rest of the family is doing while this all unfolds. Because in a lot of houses, the sibling is actually the trigger. And we forget to plan for that at all. Now, let's start with why afternoons actually fall apart. The short answer is, and I'm sure you already know this, our kids with ADHD are working incredibly hard all day and they've just run out of fuel. A lot of our kids try to mask all day. They hold their ADHD in and they get to their safe place, like we were talking about in the last episode, and it all just kind of comes out. For a child with ADHD, the school is an environment that demands constant effort, sitting still when your body wants to move, staying focused when your brain wants to jump, navigating friendships and all the social cues, the instructions, the noise, the transition, following rules when impulse control is already a challenge. So even if your child is masking all day and holding all of that in, and the teacher is saying that they're having a great day, they're still holding all of that together, and holding it all together costs them enormously. So by the time they get home, the tank is completely empty. Home is safe. You are safe. And that's exactly where this release happens. And I want to be really clear about this because it changes everything. It's not that they're choosing to fall apart at home instead of school. It's that home is the only place they feel safe enough to fall apart at all. Now, this thing has a name, and most parents have never heard about it, which is a shame because sometimes I think having a name to call it helps us remember it in the heat of the moment. It's called the after school restraint collapse. Now, let me define it really plainly for us. After school restraint collapse is what happens when a child who has suppressed their emotions and their behavior all day arrives home and releases all of that pent up tension at once. Now, my pediatrician described it as a Coke can that it's just been shaking all day. And then when it gets home, it opens and explodes everywhere. It's most common in children with ADHD and with anxiety and with autism. But honestly, it can happen to any child who's been working hard to regulate themselves in a demanding environment. And here are the signs. Let's see how many you recognize. Crying over small things, explosive anger that seems to come out of nowhere, complete shutdown, or inability to make even a simple decision. This is one of my things. I lose the ability to make decisions. Physical symptoms like a stomach ache or a headache, or just switching off entirely or refusing to engage with anyone. So often what looks like a tantrum, what looks like bad behavior is actually dysregulation. The brain's emotional control system is overloaded and it needs to recover. Okay, so here's why your morning strategies don't rescue you at 3:30. Most ADHD routines and rhythms are built around the morning. And I understand why, because that's where the pain or the friction is the most visible. The school run chaos, the shoes, the clock, you're racing against it. Everyone can see it. But the afternoon is often where the real breakdown happens, and most families have no system for it at all. There is this perception of extra time in the afternoon, and so we tend to leave things too long in our sequencing. But there's also something else going on with medication that's worth understanding. Many children with ADHD take medication that peaks in the morning and wears off as the school day goes on. So by the time they get home, they may be experiencing what is sometimes called a rebound, a dip in mood and in regulation as the medication clears from their system. This does not mean that medication is the wrong choice, not at all. What it means is that the after school window is a specific neurological window and it needs to have its own system, not just a harder version of your morning plan. Now, before we build that system, I want to give you a quick version of what to do, so move through it fast. When your child is having a full meltdown, the thinking part of their brain is offline. Reasoning, consequences, explanations, none of it reaches them. So there are 4 moves. Reduce the input, get alongside them instead in front of them, quietly, no demand or eye contact, wait roughly 20 to 30 minutes for the brain to come out of that stress response and deal with the issue afterwards once they're calm, not in the storm. And here's what doesn't work. Well, threats don't work, consequences delivered in the moment don't work, explaining while it's still happening doesn't work, raising your voice, or physically removing them from the space they've taken themselves to for safety. That last one is worth a beat. If your child has taken themselves off somewhere, that is regulation working, and that's actually a good thing. So don't undo it. All right, here's a question that I want you to sit with. What would change in your afternoons if everyone in the family knew exactly what was supposed to happen for the first 30 minutes after school? Not every minute mapped out in the afternoon, but just for that first 30 minutes. Not just your child, but everyone. Sit with that word, everyone, because that word is the whole rest of the episode. So let's build it. And I'm going to say this up front. You won't prevent every single meltdown. That is not the name of the game. But you can reduce the frequency and intensity significantly with the right setup in place. Because after school collapse is not random, it's predictable, and predictable problems can be planned for. There are 4 pieces to this first 30 minutes. Remember, we're not going for the whole afternoon, we're just going for the first 30 minutes. The first is a decompression space. Now, I love kids riding to school on their bikes for a few reasons. It gives them that decompression space as they're coming out of the school area. So they're outside, they're in nature, they're riding, they're doing exercise, and often that little process is a really good decompression exercise. But I know that that's not possible for everybody. So you might want to stop off at the park on the way home and have your afternoon tea at a park. This might also be their bedroom or a quiet corner with headphones, a spot in the garden where they quietly have something to eat. The goal is a low demand environment that they can move into immediately without having to ask for it and without having to negotiate for it. And this decompression space has to be automatic. So if they have to request it, it isn't a system yet. The second is treating that first 20 minutes as a no demand window. So no questions about their day, no jobs, no chores. You might have a snack that's available without them having to ask for it, and quiet all familiar sensory input. So it might be a favorite show, some music, or some time outside, or riding the bike home from school. The second is the handover. And this is the one that most parents have never even considered. So let me slow down right here. How you greet your child in the first moment is more important than you actually think. A low demand greeting sounds like, good to see you, snacks on the bench. A high demand greeting sounds like, how was your day? Have you got your jumper? We need to leave at 5. One of those signals safety, and the other one spikes an already depleted system before they've even put their bag down. And the fourth piece is we have to plan for what siblings are going to do. ADHD is genetic, right? If you've got one child with ADHD, you're very likely to have all your kids with ADHD, right? And so we need to plan for that lower demand window. What is each child going to be doing? Because we can't have them necessarily meeting conflict in that low demand window, because it's going to set the afternoon off on a very different tone. So let's talk about siblings for the moment, because siblings in the afternoon are so very often the trigger. They want to connect, or they want some sensory stimulation or play or argue, or right at the exact moment when one child who's particularly explosive in the afternoon has zero capacity for any of it. And parents are often really depleted from their own day with very little regulation left to offer anyone. So everyone arrives in the same house at the same time with nothing in place. The solution isn't to manage your child's ADHD more carefully. It's to design that 3 to 5 p.m. window for the whole family. So what does that mean in practice? It means Everyone has a decompression plan, not just your child with identified ADHD. It means that siblings have independent activities for that first window. It means that the parent's role in that window is warm presence, not problem solving. It means the food is ready without negotiation. It means the expectations for that time are clear and consistent every single day. And this is just such a tricky part of the day to get right. Specifically, if you're a parent who works from home, works long hours, has a chronic disease, living with chronic pain, has executive function struggles yourself. This is why the system is so important and needs to carry us more than the desire to have a good afternoon. Because chances are, if you go into this time of the day unprepared, you're going to have exactly the same outcomes that you've always had. Because when the system is the plan, you stop relying on everyone having to have a good day at the same time. And in a family navigating ADHD, this is almost never going to be the strategy that holds. And for me, the reason that I lean so hard on these systems is because they are morally neutral. They are not good or bad. Even a system that didn't work for you is good information. Now we can pull out what made that system not work for you. Now we've got more information to hit on the system that does work for your family. And you may need some support around this. Now, one quick thing before we finish, because some of you need it. If that after school restraint collapse is getting worse, a gradual worsening means something specific has shifted. You might have a change in teacher, a peer situation, academic pressure building up, sensory overload during the day that's going unaddressed. It might be something at home adding to the baseline, or a system that is quietly worn thin and needs a deliberate reset. And if the meltdowns are escalating or becoming physically unsafe or genuinely wiping out family life day after day, then it is worth getting support from someone who really understands ADHD, not because something is wrong with your family, but because a family under this level of sustained stress deserves a proper plan, not just more tips. So perhaps you've identified that your family's afternoon system needs some support. The after school collapse is one of the clearest examples of a friction point you can plan for instead of bracing against. The 3 p.m. crash goes onto what I call your family's friction map. The 2 to 3 moments in the day that you already know are coming mapped out so you can build a plan for each one. And that's what we're going to do together in my free online session, the ADHD Family System. We look at what is happening for every single person in the family in that after school window. We start building a landing ramp that works for your real family in your real life, not generic routines from someone who has no idea what your 3 p.m. actually looks like. You do not need to manage this better. You need a system that actually holds you. So there is 3 dates to choose from to come along to the ADHD Family System. They are in the first week of September. Go on over to thefunctionalfamily.com/system. There's a link in the show notes too. And let's design an afternoon that works for your family. I'll see you in the next episode.